Colonel Amara Diop was reviewing routine ecological reports when he stumbled upon something that sent a chill down his spine. Chinese operatives had been conducting secret resource extraction operations in the fictitious nation of Zambakor for years. What he did next would send ripples across the global environmental community. But first, let me tell you how a simple environmental briefing became the most dangerous discovery of his career. The morning coffee sat untouched, growing cold on Diop's desk as Minister of Ecology Aminata Diallo burst through the heavy mahogany doors. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the air conditioning humming overhead. In her trembling hands, a classified folder bore the red stamp. Urgent eyes only. "Oh, it's Colonel," she gasped, her voice hoarse with urgency. "We intercepted something during last night's satellite sweep. This changes everything." The worn leather chair creaked as Diop leaned forward, studying his old friend's face. Diallo's hands hadn't shaken like this since their days tracking poachers in the great northern reserves when a rogue elephant herd had tested their courage. "Show me," Diop commanded quietly. "Wait until you hear what those reports revealed." The folder's contents made the air in the room feel thick, oppressive. Encrypted satellite imagery, geological analysis sheets, and, most chilling of all, coordinates that pointed to locations deep inside Zambakor. But these weren't from the usual suspects. The metadata header read, Source, Beijing, Han. Destination, Zambakor Deep Earth Assets. Zambakor Territory, Diop whispered, his voice barely audible. "How long have these transmissions been active?" His friend's throat worked as she swallowed hard. "To our analysis, sir, 5 years, maybe longer." The words hit like physical blows. For 5 years, while Diop had been building his career on principles of environmental protection and national integrity, foreign operatives had been conducting secret resource extraction under his nose. But what happened next will terrify you. The first decoded image appeared on the secure tablet screen. It's cold, technical data masking a devastating reality. Target Alpha confirmed. Rare earth mineral extraction data transmitted. Local officials unaware of deep bore drilling equipment installation. Diop's ranger training kicked in, but he couldn't stop his hands from clenching into fists. Someone was stealing Zambakor's most sensitive geological data. Target beta operational, national park surveillance intercepts running smoothly, subject unaware of environmental breaches. The tablet nearly slipped from his grasp. They had been monitoring the protected wildlife, the very heart of Zambakor's natural heritage. Target Gamma requires immediate attention. Local indigenous leaders protesting mining operations detected. Recommend intervention before public uprising. Colonel? Diallo's voice cut through the shock. "There's something else, something personal." Little did he know this was just the beginning. Deep in the intelligence files was a document that made Diop's world collapse. A psychological profile labeled Subject, Colonel Amara Diop. Threat assessment, critical. The file, dated 6 months before he'd even taken his current post, analyzed his anti-foreign exploitation tendencies and potential for regional environmental activism with clinical precision. But the section that froze his blood was titled Neutralization Options. They had been planning contingencies for his removal before he'd even taken office. "There's more," Diallo said, her voice heavy with reluctance, "about the source of these leaks." She handed over another file. This one containing a photograph that shattered Diop's trust in everything he'd built. Dr. Amaini Cohn, his chief geologist, the woman who knew his family and had shared meals at his table, shaking hands with a stranger at a cafe in downtown Ndola. The stranger's identification read, Lai Y, Ministry of State Security Operations Officer. But wait, even darker memories flooded back with nauseating clarity. Cohn asking casual questions about expedition schedules, her insistence on accompanying Diop to environmentally sensitive discussions with international conservation groups, her convenient absences during UN Environmental Summit preparations. For 8 months, China had been living inside Diop's inner circle, recording every conversation, analyzing every decision, preparing for every contingency. "How many people know about this?" Diop asked, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside. "Just us," Diallo replied, "and the 2 intelligence officers who made the discovery. I've sworn them to secrecy." The colonel nodded, his mind racing. If Cone was compromised, how many others were feeding information to Beijing? How deep did this penetration go? The truth he discovered would change Zambakor forever. What they uncovered over the next 48 hours defied comprehension. Hidden seismic monitoring equipment in 3 locations across Zambakor. A data intercept station routing all geological survey traffic through Chinese servers. A hit list containing the names of 3 local environmental activists who had spoken against large-scale foreign mining. Those leaders were already dead, their murders blamed on local militia groups, but the intercepted communications told a different story. Targets eliminated without local attribution. Operations successful. They killed our people, Diallo whispered, staring at the evidence spread across the conference table. On our soil, for our resources. Diop's response came from somewhere deep and primal, a place where official protocol held no sway. Then they've declared war on Zambakor's future. What Amara DLP did next shocked the entire world. The raids began at exactly 4:17 a.m. coordinated strikes on all 3 Chinese operational sites. DLP personally led the team targeting the compound near the capital, unwilling to trust such a sensitive operation to anyone else. What they found in that nondescript building exceeded his worst nightmares. A fully operational Ministry of State Security station disguised as an agricultural research firm, deep drilling equipment in sealed cases, false environmental assessment documents, and, in a reinforced vault, thousands of files detailing Project Dragon's maw. China's continental resource network spanning 15 African nations. But the most damaging discovery was a recent operational update outlining plans for Diop's own elimination, scheduled for the following month. Method: vehicle malfunction during routine environmental survey. Planning his murder with the same clinical efficiency. The consequences of this discovery would shake 3 continents. 72 hours later, Diop stood before global media with captured Chinese surveillance equipment displayed on tables behind him. His hands were steady now, his voice carrying the weight of absolute moral conviction to the citizens of Zambakor and the watching world. He began, "Today we expose state-sponsored environmental terrorism conducted by China against African sovereignty." He held up intercepted communications, their Mandarin text translated into stark English. While China claims to foster development, these documents prove they have been conducting systematic resource theft and environmental destruction against African nations who dare protect their natural heritage. The evidence was overwhelming. Satellite imagery of the drilling stations and communications between Beijing and operatives in Ndola. Video testimony from captured agents. Technical specifications of illicit extraction equipment. Within hours, the story dominated international headlines. China's immediate denials rang hollow against the mountain of documentation. More damaging still, similar evidence began emerging from Tanzania, Botswana, and Nigeria. Zambakor wasn't alone. If you think that was shocking, wait until you see what happened next. The transformation that followed was unprecedented in African politics. Within 6 months, 15 nations had simultaneously expelled Chinese intelligence operations. The African Union passed its strongest resolution in decades, condemning systematic espionage and resource exploitation programs conducted by foreign powers. But the personal cost was devastating. 3 assassination attempts targeted Diop in the following months. Dr. Cone was found dead in her cell, officially ruled suicide, an execution to prevent testimony. The betrayal had cut deeper than any physical wound. During long nights in the presidential residence, now swept daily for surveillance devices, Diop wrestled with questions that haunted him. How many others had been compromised? Could he trust anyone completely? Is true environmental sovereignty even possible in a world where foreign powers felt entitled to African resources? Yet he never wavered. 1 year after the expose, standing at the same podium where he'd first revealed Chinese operations, DLP addressed the transformation his courage had sparked. "They told us the price of independence would be too high," he said, his voice carrying across the packed auditorium and into homes across Africa. They warned that challenging powerful nations would bring consequences. He gestured to the flags of 15 African nations now flying behind him. But the price of remaining silent, allowing foreign powers to poison our land, steal our resources, and plan our assassinations, that price was higher still. The audience rose as one, applause thundering through the hall and spilling into the streets of Ndola, where thousands had gathered to watch. Today, Africa stands taller because one small nation refused to remain silent about foreign environmental terrorism. That courage has awakened a continent. As investigations continued across Africa, more Chinese operations emerged from the shadows. What had begun with Diop's routine environmental briefing had become the continent's greatest counter-exploitation victory since independence. The man who had accidentally discovered foreign surveillance in his reports had ignited an African awakening that would forever change the continent's relationship with those who sought to control it from afar. And that courage was worth every price they had to pay.